talking to you guys today about genetically modified foods. So a majority of Americans are unaware that they consume a steady diet of genetically modified foods. What genetic modification is part of biotechnology, although a lot of people assume that genetic modification is a positive thing, which produces more food faster, and that food will eventually last longer as well. What they don't seem to have any concern about is those negative consequences. Genetic modification is a result of foreign genes, primarily from other plants and animals, being inserted into the DNA sequences of foods. So what most of us don't realize is that the majority of the products available for consumption in grocery stores throughout the United States and also in various countries around the world contain multiple ingredients derived from those genetically modified foods. So my major claim is the production and consumption of genetically modified food by humans leads to negative consequences. And a lot of those negative consequences include harm to the environment, an increase in food allergies, and an increase in the amount of bodily toxins in human beings. So my first claim that I begin with is the harm to the environment caused by genetic modification to foods. A lot of the genetic modification in growing crops, and specifically GM crops, is the use of pesticides and chemicals in killing weeds. One of the biggest businesses who is at fault at this is a company called Monsanto, and they are a seed company who owns Roundup, which most of you should know that kills your weeds and everything. So GM crop farmers spray Roundup on their crops to avoid weeds being grown. What Monsanto also does is provide Roundup Ready seed, so those farmers can plant that seed and spray a large amount of those pesticides on those crops without those crops dying or anything having consequence to them. That ends up leading to air, land, and water pollution as well. And another main problem is that organic farmers who put all their time and energy in making their crops readily available to other consumers are put out of business due to cross-contamination from genetically modified seeds. There's a quote from this genetically modified activist post that says, "Significantly, GMOs were primarily designed to be resistant to powerful pesticides to encourage their use. These deadly pesticides are applied in heavier doses than traditional crops need and then leach into the waterways, polluting everything in their path." So obviously you're not going to be wanting to drink that water that has been contaminated with pesticides thanks to genetic modification. Another main topic is that they can increase food allergies drastically. A lot of people sometimes are born with pre-existing allergies, and when they consume food products that are made with genetic modification, those allergies can dramatically become worse. There's a man by the name of Jeffrey Smith who writes for the Institute for Responsible Technology, and he states that in the last decade and a half, childhood food allergies have increased tremendously due to recent changes in the average American diet. Bacteria, virus, and other genes have been artificially inserted to the DNA of soy, corn, cottonseed, and canola plants, which are a majority of the ingredients in a lot of the foods that we consume on a regular basis. These unlabeled genetically modified foods carry a risk of triggering life-threatening allergic reactions. Because of them being unlabeled, we aren't aware of that firsthand, and that really is a big issue. And then finally, genetically modified foods increase the amount of bodily toxins in humans. Mainly, they increase the toxicity levels in the human body, and that can lead to serious health problems, including death. In an article from the Food Science and Nutrition Journal from 2009, a critical review on health risks of genetically modified foods states the results of most studies with GM foods indicate that they may cause some common toxic effects such as hepatic, pancreatic, renal, or reproductive effects, and may also alter the hematological, biochemical, and immunological parameters. All of those things you don't want happening to you. Your skin, eyes, hair, nails, and teeth can begin to lose their proper functions. Those are basic necessities in a human body that we all need, and because of consumption of canned foods, those can be lessened and become a lot weaker. And the digestive and reproductive systems are also put at a high risk. So in conclusion, you want to be able to make sure that you're aware of this health risk to yourself and others around you. And that's it.
All right, Natalie, it does take you a while to get to the claim. You're a minute into the speech before we get the actual proposition. I know you're giving us some background. I think that needs to go a little bit quicker so that we know where the controversy is going to be and what inferences you're drawing. However, when you do get there, it's relatively clear, and you had a good layout of what the secondary positions were going to be. You did assert that there's a lack of knowledge on the part of the public on this, and I didn't really get any data to support that particular assertion. So I think that that is the start of one of the places where you need a little bit more information. There's stuff about allergies, for instance, that you do present that did have a source citation on it, but the explanation of that authority's opinion needs to be a little bit more complete. Is this based on research that they've done? It's basically a kind of correlation, and they're making the inference there. And I'm not saying that they aren't qualified to make that inference, but it's one of those things where additional data would be more encouraging for us to believe that. There's not really any statistical support on any of the examples that you have. When you mentioned the issue of potential pollution, for instance, I didn't think there was any data on the pollution issue. You did have one quote from an unidentified activist who talks about how water contamination is likely to be the result, but that's about as far as it goes. The last point, I think, is the one where you outline most clearly what the potential threats are. And you've got a good source citation on that particular information, although it is a little bit vague as to what these effects all mean. That there is a connection to some of these minor changes, that there's a consequence to them is not explained or described. What the connection here is and what the impact is going to be, it's not really explained. You just kind of say, well, it's not something that you want to have happen. Probably not, but I'm not sure why I don't want to have it happen, except that it's a difference from the way I was before to the way I would be now. And you got to show me that there's a consequence to that. I thought you did a pretty good job speaking to the audience and trying to build credibility through your own personal presentation. Like I said, I do think you need to gain a little bit more credibility from some of the sources that you're citing. The background on Roundup and the whole thing about the farmers and cross-contamination, that needed a little bit more time to develop. That might, in fact, make a more appropriate second topic as opposed to being included in this particular topic. It seems more like it's the allergies and the consumption of these foods that is really the focus of most of your argument. All right, thank you.